even brought Angela out yet. We are joined today by actress and playwright Angela Polight, and proud to say former Sheen Center theater fellow. And we're here to talk to her and also talk about her timely one-woman play, Mary Speaks. So Angela, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so sorry to be late to the party.
Well,
but I'm here.
Well, there you go. That's all that's important. As we said at the beginning of the show, the name of the series is our Faith, Hope, and Love series. And I really can't think of many artists that have come through our doors that embody those three virtues with such grace than you do. And your play, Mary Speaks, certainly leads with them. And I hopefully, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about the play, but let's just start off talking a little bit about you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into theater?
Yeah. So I'm Angela, everybody. I am a proud native of Charleston, South Carolina. Southern girl, born and bred. So I'm a Southern seed in Northern soil. I've been here in New York for probably 12 plus years and have really begun to make New York my home and have found this wonderful sense of community. And I'm so grateful. How did I get into theater? Well, let me not discount my small beginnings. My first role was that of the littlest bear in the Three Little Bears in kindergarten. It really was. And then in fifth grade, I had my first lead role as Harriet Tubman in the Black History play, and it was a real big deal. But professionally, I started in musicals. I started doing musicals when I really started in theater because I'm a singer. It was a good foot in the door for me. And so I did musicals for about a year and a half. And then at some point, I really decided that I wanted to just do straight plays. And so I started auditioning just for the straight plays. And the rest is history. I've been acting for quite some time and very grateful to be able to live out my gift.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful. Well, we've been blessed to be able to accompany you for a certain number of months on this project. And what you've always sort of led with is how you see not just this play, but your writing and your performances as a form of ministry. Can you talk a little bit about that and how your faith just informs you as an artist?
Yeah, so my faith definitely informs me as an artist. I like to say I do not check my faith at the door. I bring it with me. So if I am writing about a character and I'm creating a character in terms of writing, or if I am playing a particular role on stage or on television, I always see that as trying to search for the truth in that character. And there is so much that as actors, we have to use ourselves. So I use my personal arsenal. So I feel that in those moments, I am actually being used to pour out, to try to empower, to try to heal, to try to figure out the truth. And for me, that's ministry. And even when I am teaching, I'm an educator, I am pouring out, I am giving to my students. And so I carry my faith with me. My faith comes with me. It is not a separate deal. So I walk in the door and my faith walks in with me. And so I hope that through roles that I play, that people can kind of see a little bit more than just an actor who was hired, that I would exemplify something a little bit deeper through the characters that I play.
Yeah. And, a lot of the artists that we've been privileged to work with at the Sheen Center, obviously, many of them are artists of faith as well, really also speak to how their church experience is actually in many ways very similar to their theater experience, in the sense that it's about that sense of mission, about communicating truths, and a lot of the energy that they bring to their theatrical performances were actually learned, or at least germinated, in their experience of church.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I think that makes one a good actor is to do life very well. I think sometimes this business is seductive, and it makes you think that all you need to do is, go to an acting school and end up, on a stage somewhere. But I think what makes your work so much more juicier is if you do life well, because this way you have an arsenal, you have things that you can draw from. And that's what you use to create those characters. So if you don't have anything in your personal arsenal, you don't have anything with to create. And so I use those things. I don't allow those things to not be used, because they help to inform a character.
Yeah. Listening to you say that, it reminds me this year last year, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of this document, Pope John Paul II's letter to artists. And in that, he said, the most important thing for an artist is to hopefully create a masterpiece out of his or her life. It's the life is the masterpiece. Speaking of works, let's now talk a little bit about your project, Mary Speaks. And it speaks so powerfully both to our moment right now, and also to our mission at the Sheen Center. What inspired you to write it? And you've been working on it for several years, including during that year fellowship at the Sheen Center. How has it evolved over the years?
It has truly evolved. So I was inspired to write Mary Speaks after the rash of killings of unarmed Black men that we saw between 2012 and 2015. It seemed like it just would not stop. And what I remember is every time there was a killing, there was an interview with the mother, a Black mother. And just watching the hurt and the pain that they were experiencing, it really propelled me to want to tell them their story. And specifically, I wanted to tell that story through the historical lens of the burden that it is to be a Black mother with a Black son in America. And so when we first started, I had this tiny little piece. It was about 15, 20 minutes of a piece. And we kind of premiered it, so to speak, at a festival that allowed us to, put out works that were in development. And that very first showing, the kind of reaction that we got at that time was very palpable. And it kind of let me know that I had something. And so that's when the real work began. It has evolved, and it continues to, unfortunately, be inspired by the events of the day. But we've come a long way. We've come a long way from that tiny little piece that I crafted several years ago.
Yeah, and I certainly want to spend a good portion of time really unpacking the timeliness of the piece. But before we do that, could you just for some context for obviously for maybe some viewers who have never seen your performance of it, could you just explain the actual framework of the piece? Because it's a one-woman show, and the character you portray really embodies the experiences of Black mothers over a long historical stretch, even though it's one character.
Mm-hmm. So the title, for those who have not, seen it, is Mary Speaks, and I am really talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus, the Blessed Mother, and I use her life as a prototype for Black mothers. And so I started to humanize this Mary, because I really saw her as this very young mother who had this very special little boy, who at birth had a bounty on his head, and she struggled obviously to keep him close and near to her, knowing that he had this huge mission. So I kind of use that as a prototype for Black mothers who are struggling to not only raise their sons, but keep them alive in a society where their very existence is seen as a threat, just like Mary's son. And ultimately, these sons are taken down by the government, and they unfortunately become crucified Black bodies. And so my Mary is not from Nazareth. My Mary is 13, and she is a descendant of the Gullah people off the coast of Charleston. So just using the prototype of Mother Mary to tell this story, to parallel it.
Yeah, that was something that was very interesting to us at the Sheen Center. How you use, as you say, using Mary, the mother of Jesus, as this prototype, and there's you create this character of the Mary in your piece. Has these Marian resonances to her, telling her story, which sort of harkens back, but is separate from Mary, the mother of Jesus. Obviously, in the Catholic tradition, Mary occupies a very special place of reverence and devotion. And having grown up in a different Christian tradition, what drew you to the figure of the Blessed Mother as sort of the lens through which you would create these parallels and use those Marian resonances?
Well, I think, as you said, I come from a Methodist tradition. So we don't necessarily revere the Blessed Mother as our Catholic brothers and sisters do. But as I began to explore this concept of using the life of Mary, I really became quite enamored with Mary and the baby. Was already enamored with the baby, but Mary comes along with the baby. And so I have to tell you that what really inspired me to use the life of Mary was really the killing of Mike Brown. There was something about that story, hearing that his body had been left out in the streets for 4 hours, I believe. At some point they came and covered it up, but his body was left out there. And I do believe that his mother and family members had come, sort of to the scene and were trying to get through. And when I read the details about that, I don't know what it was that day, but it totally took me to the cross. That's all I saw. I saw Mary at the cross. I saw Jesus's body out there after it had been crucified, just out there for the whole world to see. And immediately I said to myself, I got it. These women are Mary. They're all Marys. And then that's when the connection happened. And then I began to explore her simply as a human, and I call the play Mary Speaks because as far as we know, there's only about 4 times in the Bible that she actually speaks. So it's really this idea that this woman she is known the world over, whether you're a believer or not a believer, who is revered, but we tend to know not so much about her, and we tend not to hear as much from her mouth. And there was just something about this concept of having her speak and having her be able to say what it was like to have this precious baby boy and to be able to have to witness his death in this type of way, and then relating that to Black mothers and sort of this timeline through history that we've seen Black mothers have to do. And so that's when it kind of all came together for me. And that was 2015 when Mike Brown was killed. And then thereafter is kind of when I started formulating and thinking about it in this way.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think I've read that other than Christ, Mary is the most depicted person in art. Um, and you know, in the Catholic tradition, one of her titles is Mother of Sorrows, because obviously her sorrow for going through the passion with her son, but also she is also the mother of all people, particularly mothers, who experience that sorrow. Um, you know, also in your play, it is not just a straight drama. There is music, and song plays an essential role in the piece. Could you talk a little bit about why that was important for you?
Yeah. So when I first started writing, I didn't necessarily set out to write songs. I knew that I was writing a play and not necessarily a musical. But as I began to write, the songs came kind of organically. And when I started thinking about the importance of music, to the African American experience, I knew it was impossible to tell the story without songs. And particularly for Black women and Black mothers, I have witnessed songs almost be prayers for them. I've witnessed my mom having a difficult day, and out of nowhere, she would start singing a hymn, and she would walk through the house cleaning or doing whatever, and she would be holding that hymn in her heart, as if it were a prayer. And although I was young, I realized that there was something to that. So it truly would have been robbery for me to tell the story of the Black mother without infusing this song, without infusing songs, because it's oftentimes become prayers for them.
Uh, and it's very effective in the piece. Um, you know, faith often speaks with a pastoral voice, but
Mhm.
sometimes it demands a prophetic voice.
Yes.
And your play obviously speaks to a history of pain and racism over multiple decades and centuries. But it obviously it takes on even more relevancy given the tragic, you know, killing of George Floyd, and the many killings, you know, of recent memory. Um, what do you hope, as the playwright and as the performer, um, that Mary speaks to our current moment, um, and more importantly, what it speaks and what it says about the sacred dignity of Black lives?
Oh wow, that's a loaded question. You know, it's I took deep breaths when I first saw the video. I actually just happened upon it. I wasn't looking for it. We were sort of just hearing about it, and I just kind of literally happened upon it and I saw it. And in terms of its relevancy to this play, and using Mary's life as a prototype, the thing that really kind of really resonated and hit me is that he called out for his mother, and he called out for his mother. That just that did something to me. That did something to me. Uh, uh, Particularly thinking about what I've written, and the paralleling of that story. That's the cross. That's the story. I hope that what I have written and what we will continue to perfect will be a source for people to really look at themselves. This is the moment. This is the time. And I think, you know, what seems to be a little bit different about this particular killing, murder, is that it really sat itself right in the middle of a pandemic. And I think the what people were feeling as a result of the pandemic only propelled them to the streets, and to not be afraid. I mean, you're putting your life at risk, literally, with protest. So this tells you that people are really at a place where we're kind of tired. And I think what's most important is that we have got to do the work as people. We've got to do that work. We've got to be able to take off rosy colored glasses, because we're walking around with these glasses on and we're skipping through the tulips. And with those glasses on, we can feed innocence and fragility and what I call preciousness and all those things. But that's what children do. Children think that everything is just rosy and grand. But it's time for us as a nation, as a country, to grow up and to begin to do the work of getting back to being human, looking at each other as human beings. Because if you can't see me through your lens as human, as made by God and crafted by Him, when we lose that, all bets are off, because that means that you're liable to do anything to me and I'm liable to do anything to you. So I'm hoping that we can get to that place and that this will indeed be a watershed moment for us to really move there and do the work and not turn back. Like, just not turn back. Once we've done the work, do the work and get going, because it's our survival depends on it. Our sheer survival depends on it. I think Dr. King said either we're going to learn to live in love as brothers and sisters, or we're going to perish as fools. So we have to get about the business of doing this work. It's not easy work. It's not easy work, but we can do it. I really believe we can do it.
Wow. Yeah, there's been any number of pieces that are talking about the maybe providential timing of how everything is one crisis coming out of the other crisis. And they're saying that if we've learned anything from the COVID crisis, it's that what affects one person affects everybody. You touched on some things that I think are a perfect segue into the next question. Just as a little setup, in the Catholic tradition, we talk about both sins of commission and sins of omission. And I think this is a really important point for the moment we're in right now, that as Catholics, at least, every week at Sunday Mass, when we pray for forgiveness, part of that prayer is what I have done and what I have failed to do.
Yes.
And in one of the play's most powerful scenes, the preacher's sermon on the Oklahoma race riots and massacre in 1921, which was among the most heinous acts of racist violence in American history, you really put the evil of racism into a very pronounced spiritual framework. And not just the acts of the racists themselves, but of the blindness of others to see that racism. And I want to just quote the play here, so I want to get this right. You describe that blindness as, quote, a veil over your eyes. Now that means the veil has got to be removed because it is blocking the truth. And if the truth is being blocked by those rosy colored glasses, that means your soul is being blinded to the will of God, end quote. There's so much wonderful insights in that one sermon. Can you unpack it a little bit?
Yeah, so there's a reference to, as you said, to the 1921 riots that took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which burned down Black Wall Street. And so in this particular segment, the preacher is addressing a congregation. And it's really the concept of kind of what I was talking about. Our eyes are veiled. We are really blinded. And I think that we do this because we don't want to see, because if we see, it means that we have to do the work. And, Christ calls us, we are called to bear up the burdens of others. We are called to hurt when they hurt. And we are called to really be in communion with one another and to sort of be working out our soul's salvation. We're not just here, as my mother used to say, to take up space. She would say, Angie, you're not just here to take up space. So we're not just here to take up space. in this journey of life, we are supposed to be working some things out, and we're supposed to be doing it with the Lord. And if that means that we have a moment of repentance, then we have the moment of repentance. And the part about the repentance is that we are supposed to go forward and never do that thing again. So it's really, really taking those glasses off and really being able to see the truth. And I truly believe, because the power of God is so big, we know what's truth and what's not truth. We're clear on that. But we've got to start doing the work. We've got to start really doing the work. It's been time, and it's time now for us to really start doing that work. And we've got to know that we are built strong, and we are built for doing that work. It's not going to break us. We can do the work. Let's just do the work. Yeah, let's just do the work. No excuses, just do the work.
I want to circle back to that a little bit later. And I don't want to give away too many details about the ending of the play for viewers who haven't experienced it yet. But I can certainly say it hits with real emotional impact. And it draws on a lot of, as you already referenced, these Christological resonances from Jesus's passion. As you make the parallel between, Our Lady of Sorrows with Jesus's passion and these Black mothers throughout history, and tragically even Black mothers continuing today. You refer to it as a passion play of sorts, and I guess if I could just say for a moment to any of our Catholic listeners, in the Catholic tradition, obviously passion play has a very specific reference to plays specifically about Jesus's passion. But you draw those parallels here, and again, creating this character who isn't Mary, mother of Jesus, but it resonates with Mary's story. Could you talk a little bit about your thoughts of sort of framing this as a passion play of sorts?
Yeah. So part of that, I think what I was really trying to play with framing it sort of as a passion play is just literally looking at the Black body. And so the crucified Black body, looking at what was done in the crucifixion, the way in which it was done, the overkill way in which it was done. And so sort of paralleling that to the Black body and what has been done to the Black body. I have to say, I think throughout history, Black men, Black women, even Black children, we've not necessarily had the agency over our bodies. And I think we lost that agency when we got on a boat in 1619. When we got on a boat, that's when we lost the agency. And I think we've been fighting ever since to get that agency back. And so when I relate that to the Passion of the Christ and looking at crucified Black bodies, I'm really looking at what has been done to the body. And this is a hard place to really sit with, because when we think about the heinous way in which people are killed, it really makes you sit back and sort of take a deep swallow. Because when you hear about, like the killings of unarmed Black men or throughout history, it's almost overkill. So it begs the question of, well, did you really have to do that? How dead is dead. And so even when we think about the restraining way in which the Christ body sits on the cross, right? So the nails had to go in the hands and the feet. And so we think about the restraining of the Black body. So the shackles, being in the hull of a boat and being sardined together, and, shots fired 42 times, and the weight of someone's body on top of another person's body. I really wanted to play with this concept of this crucified Black body and the agency that oftentimes we don't have over our bodies that we've seen throughout history. So I really wanted to play with that concept to really put it in our face that as human beings, when we get to our lowest, this is what we do. And that's a hard piece. That's I'll say right out, that's a hard piece, that that this is in love, because we're better than that. And that's a hard piece to swallow, to actually sit with ourselves and say, as human beings, we have dropped to this level. You know, with everything that's happening, and I think about the play, I said to a friend, and we were talking, I was talking with Julia actually, and I said, you know, I keep asking very innocently, and like I can get the answer, where's the bottom? I feel like if we can just get to the bottom, then we'll find how can we get back up, because we've sunk to a low place, and we've got to rise back up. And so that's a really hard piece to sit with. That's a really hard piece to sit with, but it needed to sort of be there, like in your face.
Yeah. You know, it's as you talk about that, it brings up a thought. When we were at one of the readings of your play, again, it ends very powerfully, but in a very, as you say, difficult place. Carrying that sort of passion metaphor through, you were very intentional, I think, for dramatic reasons, of ending the piece more, how shall we say, on a Good Friday moment, rather than carrying it all the way through to Easter Sunday. Could you talk a little bit about that decision? Because I think that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying about wanting to just leave it there, to give people an opportunity to think about it.
Yeah, yeah, because Good Friday is where the work is. It's where the work is. It's where the revelation is. It's where the juiciness of the story is. It's easy for us to want Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, right? Because you know he did it. He said he was going to do it, and he did it. And you know, but we need Good Friday in order to get to Resurrection Sunday, to Easter Sunday. And again, it's sitting with the moment. It's doing the work, and being willing to sort of to look introspectively, and also in Good Friday, again, hard work that we have to do, but we have to ask ourselves, who are we in this story? Who are you in the story? And even in all that's happened right now, who are we in the story? So that's try to figure out, who are we in the story. So I believe that the work is in Good Friday. The revelations are in Good Friday. The turning everything around is in Good Friday. And we have to stay there. I'm not saying we have to stay there forever, but we need to sit there for a moment, because it's where we will grow. It's where we will learn. It's where it's where the work is, and it's the work that we have to do and not be afraid to do. It's just in our human nature to just, you know, skirt over things. It's just in the human nature to want it to be just happy and just happy, but we've got to do the work. We've got to do the work.
Yeah, you have to get through that Good Friday to get to that resurrection. It reminds me of, believe it was Pope Paul VI said that if you want peace, you have to work for justice. And it's that work that really gets you there. Speaking about doing the work, you know, we all know the importance of changing, you know, a culture, changing laws, you know, but as people of faith, we also know to affect real lasting change, that change has to take place at the level of the heart. We have to change people's hearts. And Mary Speaks seems to really speak to the heart of viewers. I mean, it certainly gives voice to the pain that you referenced, the moral outrage, the righteous anger. One could even say almost a moral exhaustion. But it's provocative, but it's not provoking. It really leads with love. And it leaves although it's a very, as you said, difficult piece, it leads with that love and it leads with God. Do you agree with that? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it definitely leads with love. I wrote it in love. I wrote it in love for the loss that those mothers had experienced. I, I wrote it in love even for the persons who may have been responsible for it. Because if you really love someone, you want them to be better. You know that they can be better, and you don't want to just leave them out there like that. I think there's a scripture that says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. So this is tough love. And so I do say that this leads in love, and love sometimes has to be tough. And it has to be in a way that allows the person to know that they're more than what I see. I'm not going to judge you based on what you did. That was an action. That was what you did. But I know that this is not who you are. And I want to love you enough to let you know that I see you, that I see that there's more past what you did. There's more past what you did. This is the kind of love that, of course, the Lord wants us to have, right? So I have to look past what you did, and I have to still love you. And that's just key. This is love. Love is not always, again, making it sweet and easy. This is, again, the work that we have to do. And so, yes, it does lead in love. It's a tough love, but it's a love that I think is indicative of the love that God gives us, that he gives us this awesome and amazing chance to keep getting it right over and over again. And so we have to be able to give that to our fellow brothers and sisters. We have to give people an opportunity to understand what they've done, opportunity to sit with what they've done, whatever their role is, and to know that they can be better than that. And so, yes, that to me is love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, not only what they've done, but maybe what they haven't done.
Yes.
Again, going back to that scene, just because it struck a chord so much. I mean, the scene with the preacher, in that sermon, he says, and again, this is a quote from the play, quote, "Your gift will not work without your faith, and your faith will not work without your feet." And obviously that's a reference to the scripture admonition that, faith without works is dead. There's a lot of good people, people of conscience, people of good intention, saying a lot of good intention things. But what do you think artists of faith, can do to use their gifts, but more importantly, to move their feet for this question of justice? What can artists of faith, even communities of faith, do to, as you beautifully say in your play, to hand over those special gifts to God, to put that love and that moral imperative for justice into action?
Yeah, it's what we're called to do. And, I think it's so funny, we all say, oh God, you can use me. I'm available to you to be used. And sometimes, when we make these statements, I don't think we have, like a deep understanding of what we are really signing up for. If we truly are believers and artists of faith, we have to know that God empowers us to go out there and to be the trumpeter of truth and of justice. And we have to do it not so much on our couches sometimes. Like it does really have to be an action. And so I think what we have to do is all of us, we have to look at our gifts and our talents. What can be my part? What can I authentically give? What am I really good at that can contribute to the betterment of a movement. And as you said, we can make laws and we can change laws, but only God can legislate people's hearts and minds. That is the one thing we can't do. We can't legislate someone's heart. And so in lies our work as believers to really, to really allow ourselves to be used to help people do that work and for us to do the work as well.
Wow. The play, you're writing in the play, you really write with a specificity of time and place, and even the cadence of the characters' speech and dialogue. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know as you started off by saying that you're a proud Southern seed planted in Northern soil, but could you talk about the authenticity of the cadence of the dialogue?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of cadence of dialogue, and Mary speaks. And so, this is a historical timeline. And so my Mary does start off in the 1800s in slavery. And so this is a look from slavery to present day. And so one of the things that my director, Christopher Burris, kept saying is his special word is, his magic word is specificity, specificity, specificity. So we worked really hard to make sure that if we were in the 1920s, that you really had a great sense that, whoa, this is in the 1920s. This is definitely not the year 2020, but we're in a different place in time. And we do that in the play, obviously, through the language of the play. Sometimes you go and you see a play and someone is dressed like they're in the 1920s. So we're not doing that, but we do it through the actual language. And so for me, I think as an artist in writing, it was involved a lot of research, making sure that I got it right. Also, because my Mary is also a descendant of the Gullah people, there is some dialect there, Gullah dialect there as well, that we infuse in the play. That I think really speaks to us identifying her as a Gullah girl. So yeah, it's very important because we move through places in time, and we would not want our audience to be sitting and not understand where we are. And I think we've done a really good job of really letting people know where we are in time.
Wow. The play, as we've been discussing, deals with some very serious issues, and it deals truthfully with a lot of pain. But it is also a very hopeful piece, a very a piece that really encourages solidarity and healing. One of our Sheen board members, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, speaking with other faith leaders last week, referenced a Jewish proverb that there is nothing more whole than a broken heart. And he, in speaking about the events of the last week or so, recalled talking to his father, who had lost several loved family members in the Holocaust, telling him how he remained hopeful amid such pain. And he said that his father always told him that as long as there's a tomorrow, he had hope. What gives you hope, Angela?
That quote is beautiful. What gives me hope is continuously experiencing the wondrous works of God. And by that, I mean just getting up and seeing the sunshine, being able to have fresh air, walking through and seeing a body of water, knowing that God has created all things. Those things give me hope. And also just God's unfailing love, that I know that God is love. And there are days when you may experience something that is divine because there's no other explanation for it. And there's God's way of almost like winking at us and saying, yep, I'm still there. I'm still in control. And so I'm given hope by knowing that the wondrous hand of God is still at work. It not only gives me hope, it keeps me sane, and it also keeps me faithful.
Wow. That's beautiful. And while as the work may be in the Good Friday, as you said, as people of faith, we know that the Lord has done the work to ensure us that there will be an Easter Sunday. Rabbi Potasnik also said in the Hebrew word for life can't be written in the singular. It can only be written in the plural. And that gave him hope that, understanding that we're all in this together. Angela, I want to certainly give you any final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts or things that you'd like to say?
I think my final thoughts are is love. I want to leave with love. I hope that people will just breathe in and know that they are loved. They're loved.
Wow. Well, your play certainly communicates that in a very profound way. Your choice of using Mary as that template. And again in the Catholic, really in all Christian traditions, we know that we don't pray to Mary, we pray with Mary and through Mary. And we will continue confidently that Our Lady of Sorrows will continue on this journey with us because she is the mother of us all. Angela, it has been an honor and a blessing speaking with you. I want to thank you for your wise and compassionate insights, for your ministry of theater, and for leading with that faith, hope, and love. We hope to have many more conversations about this play. As I said, we really hope producing this in the spring, and it's been a joy and an honor to accompany you on this journey. So thank you so much for spending this time with us, and thank you for being the person that you are.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am honored to have been here.
And thanks to our viewers. If you value this type of programming, I know we certainly do. I encourage you to consider making a donation to the Sheen Center during these incredibly challenging times. Obviously, any donation, no matter how small, makes a big difference. We ask you to check out all our online content at sheencenter.org. We encourage you to tune into a special presentation, a partnership with American Slavery Project on Friday, June 19th at 7:30, where we will be presenting 3 radio dramas about Black women and the ballot. That is an ongoing partnership. We've partnered with them on several events over the past few years, so we're just glad to continue that partnership. And we invite you to join us next Wednesday for our next event. Until then, stay safe, be well, God bless.